Well, here we are live on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Thursday, February 6th, 2020. And we've got a major storm here running up the East Coast, Joe, from everywhere from Florida to Maine, back into the Ohio Valley, getting hit with one thing or another. You got the whole gamut from heavy snows to tornadoes from top to bottom.
No surprise, of course, we've been saying all week because of the Storm Prediction Center indicating that there would be the chance for some very, very unsettled weather, thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, going back to when it was day 5. This goes back to this past weekend. So we knew that the southeastern states were right in the middle of the crosshairs, and today was the day, and they certainly have had their fair share of all kinds of nasty weather down in that part of the country.
Well, I got the lightning map all set to go here, so let me just bring that up. Sorry about that. There we go. Oh no, that's you. We have two shots of you. We can't have that. uh, oh, why is it not doing this? All right, let's see. Let,
Technology, Joe.
let's try it again. First, I got to get rid of you, and
I
then
can get rid of me like that if you'd like. No.
no, 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 no. You still won't go away. I can't bring the map up. Where? Oh, where? Oh, I see what I did. Never mind. I have it. Hold on. I did it backwards. There you are. And here's the lightning map. If you go to lightningmaps.org, this is actually a pretty cool tool because it gives you real time lightning stuff and lightning strikes. And in fact, we've had 50 lightning strikes in the last minute or so. We actually, I've been watching this all afternoon, and it looks like the strikes up in North Carolina have kind of died off quite a bit, while the ones down in the southeastern part of the United States, I mean down in Florida and down in southern Georgia, have picked up. Let me just make sure that the time is right on there. It says 7:01. I just want to make sure I don't have any missing data. But it looks like the activity to the northeast. I don't know if the radar wouldn't was pretty busy before. Last I checked. Hang on, let me find it. Now, here's the southeast radar. I mean, there's some pretty good cells here running up along I-95. I'm surprised that they're not showing a whole lot of lightning strikes. But then again, all right. Well, if that's what it says, that's what it says. We going back to it. As I said, lightning activity in North and South Carolina seems to have died off in the last couple of hours, but it still remains pretty busy down off along the Florida Panhandle, south of Tallahassee to Panama City, and out into the coastal waters. A pretty good squall line that's moving on through.
Pretty good indeed. There's a very, very sharp weather front that will be crossing through the southeastern states over the next 12 to 18 hours. And that, of course, is the catalyst for all of that activity that we're seeing down there. But for us, Joe, we're not going to have an easy go of it tomorrow. We're thinking that we could see wind gusts to over 45 miles an hour, which is why the folks over at the National Weather Service has issued a wind advisory for this area.
Yes, and all of this, by the way, being set up by this, like you said, this strong cold front. And as I run up the coast, we've got the 7 o'clock temperatures and dew points. I mean, clearly, we've got readings that are still in the upper 30s and low 40s. The yellow shading, the brownish shadings are all wind. That's wind advisories. There's high wind warnings that are up for southern Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, and we have flood watches that are up from New Jersey and extreme southeastern Pennsylvania down into Delaware and the Delmarva Peninsula, also through the rest of Virginia. And then as we move further south, we have tornado watches in the yellow across eastern North Carolina, down through South Carolina, Georgia, and even extending down into northern Florida. The reds, that's all flash flood warnings that are up because of some very heavy rains. And then you have other sorts of flood warnings and flood advisories as you go north and west of there. Hey, Joe, it's a really sharp, the warm front's pretty obvious. I'm looking at the temperatures in eastern North Carolina, they're in the upper 60s and low 70s, and the dew points are in the mid and upper 60s. I mean, this is pretty for February. This is a very, very ripe warm sector that has set up in the southern mid-Atlantic and down into the southeast. I'm even seeing some dew points near at 70 in parts of southeastern Georgia.
That's amazing. That really is to see dew points that high at this particular time of the year. Well, it's kind of like the way we felt, Joe, on that Halloween night, October 31st, when we had temperatures in the evening at around 73, 74, and a dew point temperature also near 70. That was a wild and woolly night for us, and it certainly is going to be, has been a wild, woolly night across the southeast into the coastal areas of the Carolinas.
Going further, we've got winter weather advisories that are up across the northern parts of I'm sorry, let me start that again. Most of Ohio, except the Northwest, down through Kentucky and northern Tennessee. And now advisories extend through western Pennsylvania and northern Pennsylvania north of Scranton. Then they kind of cut up through the Catskills. And we go to mostly winter storm warnings along and north of I 90, where there'll probably be a decent amount of snow. I think in the winter storm warnings that you see up in the northern half of Vermont and New Hampshire and most of Maine. These areas are probably going to wind up with, I'd say, at least 8 to 12 inches, and some of the hot spots in the northernmost parts of New York State and on up into central and northern Maine, they could probably wind up with a foot or a foot and a half when this is all said and done. At least they've got some cold air up there because temperatures are in the low 20s up that way, but. Um, of course, we've seen our temperatures obviously were well above freezing. And by the way, there was minimal. The winter weather advisories that are up were up last night and this morning. From what I saw, the icing must have been absolutely minimal.
It was. It started precipitating at my house at around midnight last night. At that time, the temperature was 34. Now it dipped to at 1:30 in the morning. It dipped to 32, and I said, "Well, this may be a problem." But when I woke up this morning, it was back up to 34, and I really didn't see much of anything in terms of any kind of ice or sleet on my deck or on my driveway. So yeah, it must have been very minimal, and I would suppose that north of 84, the 84 corridor, is where they did see a bit of icing. But even up there, I don't think it was really all that significant.
Yeah, a lot of the precip that Maine went through overnight and this morning wasn't really particularly heavy, which kind of played up according to plan. Also, want to mention too, Joe, we've got out in the from Colorado on up northward into western Montana and parts of eastern Idaho. We have a slew of winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, and I think we even have a couple of avalanche. Yep, in parts of Utah, we have some avalanche warnings. Also, avalanche warnings in northwestern Washington state with some flood watches. That is the next weather system that is dropping into the western part of the United States. So it's basically been a bowling alley out there lately. And I just want to take a look at what the snowfall's been in the last 72 hours or so. Well, clearly in the last 24 hours, much of the action has been out in the west. The snow that was forecast, now this is only through 7 a.m., so I want to be a little careful here in terms of saying that these are final amounts here. This map's not behaving itself very well. But we're looking at snow amounts that were generally in the 1 to 3 inch range. Looks like there was some snow east of Dallas, a little just a coating to an inch east of Dallas, and then not much in Dallas itself, at least through 7 a.m. And there's sort of narrow band that ran up through Chicago. At least it looks like Chicago, at least from early this morning, had about a coating to a couple of inches. And in the last 24 hours, there's been up to about 4 inches in areas along and north of I-90 in upstate New York, just north of Albany. Rochester was close to a zone, a small area there that got about 6 to 8. And then, of course, you see out in the Rockies, they got quite a bit of snow in the last 24 hours. north and west of Denver in the northwestern quarter of the state of Colorado, and then on up the Rockies through western Wyoming and into Montana and over into Idaho and northeastern Oregon, getting hit pretty hard with snow. So that's the extent of it as far as the snow that fell last night. And with respect to total new snow, I'll bring that map up through Sunday anyway. And I think Western PA, well, Western and North Central Pennsylvania, and maybe into the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania. We were talking yesterday about maybe some a little snow on the backside, which doesn't happen too often, coming down into maybe down the Hudson Valley or maybe into Northwest New Jersey. Could see maybe some back end snow showers. I'll stick with that. I'll stick with you with that possibility.
Yeah, I said that because of the fact that those winds are going to be so fierce tomorrow, that any kind of snow activity that's occurring along the lee of the lakes, that wind could just simply pick up on some of that activity and literally drive it rapidly south and eastward toward us. Now, a lot of times when we see activity from the Great Lakes approach or move southeastward, it usually dries out as it comes down slope of the Catskill Mountains, and we just get some cloud cover. But every once in a while, and this tomorrow might be one of those days, we may very well see a couple of those renegade snow showers or flurries work their way all the way down from the snow belt into parts of the tri-state area. Not talking about something like a snow squall, although that really would be a surprise. But it would not be surprising if in the morning you woke up, and went out and saw a couple of showers, and as you're heading back home from work or school, you encountered a few flakes of wet snow. I should also point out, Joe, that the atmosphere is only going to be modestly cold later in the day. I do think we're going to see a drop in the temperature. The highs tomorrow will probably be in the morning. In fact, I'm thinking that the temperatures after midnight tonight in many areas will probably climb upward slowly but surely. Probably peak somewhere at around 50 tomorrow before noontime, and then drop off quickly tomorrow afternoon as the winds rapidly increase out of the west northwest. Again, those winds could gust upwards to over 45 miles an hour, so hold on to your hat.
I'm kind of drawing in some the 3, the 6 inch, and the 12-inch line on the map here as far as what we're going to see for overnight into tomorrow, and of course the border of zero running well north and west of the big cities. Uh, you really, where you see the ones, most of that is a coating to at most an inch. So it's probably a fairer assessment. You'd get it's a very tight. You probably will go from a coating to 3 inches in a very tight zone. And I drew the 3 inch line over Albany, and I got the 1 foot line just very close to Rochester, running up to the north and east. So this is kind of how it sets up as far as snowfall is concerned out of this particular system. It's considering that the amount of cold air we have is minimal. It's the amounts aren't too shabby for upstate New York, and also so some areas in Ohio and down in through Kentucky and West Virginia, and haven't really seen a whole lot of snow here this winter. So in these areas back through the Ohio Valley, a coating to an inch or so. Some higher amounts are going to be forecast up in the northern Great Lakes around Minneapolis. By the way, this takes us into Sunday night, so some of this is from the next weather system. What you see in the western lakes here and up in the northern plains, that's from the next weather system that's going to be impacting over the weekend. And the system dropping down is going to impact the Rockies again. Some Denver forecast to only get 3, but west and north of Denver, some 30-inch plus prints showing up there. So some fairly sizable snowfalls there. Some rather sizable snowfalls in western Montana, western Wyoming, and on up in through Idaho. And today's winning print once again goes in the Cascades in Washington, where we've got a print of 107 inches somewhere southwest of Seattle. I don't know. I'm not sure what point that is. It's to the west. I'm sorry, southeast of Seattle. It's east of Olympia and southeast of Tacoma and southeast of Seattle. There's a 107-inch print there.
Unbelievable.
Is there one log cabin up in that way? I mean, that's it. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Oh dear me. How do you live up there? I mean, if you although that's the snow weenie's dream
Oh
to
yeah.
live
Oh,
up in that area.
no question. This system is really looking pretty impressive on the satellite loop. I'm just looking at the cloud structure, and you've got this really strong tropical feed coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and shooting into the southeastern part of the United States. I mean, this really is setting up to be, quite the monster-looking storm that's developing in the east, and we can see the next system dropping down from the northwest into the Rockies that is spreading moisture southeastward. And if you look carefully, by the way, on these GOES pictures, as pointed out yesterday, you actually can, because you can see all the different layers. If you'll notice, if you look really closely when you pull up the GOES loop, look for the clouds that don't move at all. That's snow cover.
That snow cover,
And if
yeah.
you look in Texas, folks, you can see that band of snow there, that narrow band. That's all snow cover there up in North Texas and into Oklahoma. And it looks like, at least judging from the satellite loop, from what we could see of it, where skies are clear, that system seems to maybe underperformed in terms of the forecast snow amounts. But nonetheless, that is snow, and you can also see it up in the northern plains, and you can just kind of catch it in the central Rockies there, from New Mexico on the central and southern Rockies, from New Mexico on northward into Colorado. So these ghost pictures are actually pretty cool that you can see
And
that so well.
seeing that in portions of northern Texas and Oklahoma, they probably have far more snow than many areas in the tri-state area, including even the lower Hudson Valley.
Oh yeah,
Amazing.
no, it is nuts. But you know what? Usually when it's snowing down, you get years where it's snowing down there. That's a good clue that the upper pattern is not working in the for the Northeast or for the Mid Atlantic states.
Right.
So I'm going to bring up the full radar here, and here you go. So you can see heavy rain's going to be getting here soon, Joe. I'm looking at the radar. There's some rain that just moved out, but the main batch is loading up in Virginia and now moving into Delaware and southern New Jersey. So that main area is going to be coming through here before too long. And you can see right along I-95 actually is where you see some of the heaviest. It looks like the heaviest showers and thunderstorms are running right along the edge of I-95 from southern Virginia all the way into southeastern Georgia.
Right. And
Pretty cool.
it is. It is. It looks like though the we had been speculating a day or two ago about whether or not we might see some convection of our own here, but it looks like right now that a lot of that is being directed more out over the ocean. So this is going to be more of a fish situation so far as lightning and thunder is concerned, at least here in the
Yeah, I
area.
agree. That warm set, yeah, the with the temperatures still holding in the upper 30s and low 40s, and the warm front, Joe, on the 21Z map, which I will punch up now, is the low is in West Virginia. It's a 992 low in central West Virginia. You've got this snaking warm front that runs across North Carolina. It kind of looks like a hairpin. And temperatures in eastern North Carolina, they're in the 70s with dew points in the 60s. The boundary runs stationary off the Delaware coast. It's in the 50s there, and off the southern New Jersey coast, and then kind of jets out east northeast to south of Long Island and southeastern New England. So we've got this pinching that's going on here with 30s and 40s, and even some fog showing up. I don't know what station that is. That might be Poughkeepsie. That's on the observation anyway. Has some fog. But you're definitely getting this colder air that's being very, very stubborn, and the warm front's going to have a real difficult time pushing northward. So I agree. You're probably going to wind up having all that convective stuff run along and south of this stationary boundary on the map that is running off the Delaware coast and off the coast of southern New England.
Right. And I'd say that the bulk of this is probably going to be the bulk of the precipitation is probably going to be over said and done here, probably by or right around noontime tomorrow. And then after that, again, as I mentioned a few moments ago, if we get anything tomorrow afternoon with that strong and increasingly gusty west northwest wind, we might see a flurry or a passing snow shower in one or two spots, driven along by that very strong wind. But I think again that the bulk of the heavy precipitation, and I'm thinking right now, Joe, at least for the lower Hudson Valley, something like 8 tenths to maybe maybe a full inch. I know there was talk about maybe 2 or even 3 inches, but now as it looks, a lot of that heavy duty rain plus the convection offshore is going to probably preclude seeing large scale or tremendous amounts, but we still should be able to squeeze out, I think, 3/4 or 8 tenths or maybe even a full inch of rain out of this over the course of the night tonight.
Yeah, if I'm going to kind of line up the heavy rain, I don't know if you can see it yet. I know you're running on a little bit of a delay. I just took at the radar, and I basically drew what looks like a two lane markers on a highway, and the precip seems to be behaving itself in terms of its motion. So the heavy rain that's down in Virginia, as long as the northwest edge stays where it is, you'll probably get that heavy rain into central and south Jersey, south of Route 78, and probably over Long Island and southern Connecticut. But then just north and west of New York City, up to up the Hudson Valley, you'll probably see the amounts start shaving off. So I'm guessing in that little channel that I drew, this is where we'll probably wind up with an additional one to maybe some spots getting up to another 2 inches of rain the further south you go. And then, as you said, your total inch is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. I think that makes sense based on what we're seeing here on the radar view.
And the NAM pretty much follows what you just mentioned in turn, and what is the radar is depicting right now. The NAM was showing that area of moderate to possibly heavy precipitation, indeed sweeping off the south and central Jersey coast, sweeping through much of Long Island, and then off to the north and east. So yeah, those areas may pick up a couple of inches, but again, it's not like what we were thinking a few days ago when we were thinking that, oh my goodness, maybe 2, 3, even 4 inches is possible. But again, with all of that heavier stuff and the convection more to the south and east, it does not look like a tremendous amount. Certainly, except for southern and central Jersey, I don't think anywhere else has any kind of flood watch that's in effect or
No,
posted.
it's central and south Jersey southward.
Right.
So the thinking is that northern edge kind of cuts off just north of New York City, I guess, in terms of the heaviest rain. Speaking of the NAM, I've got it up here, and starting at 4 o'clock, the 21Z, the NAM had the low on the Virginia-Kentucky border. So on the analysis, it's actually a little bit further north than that. But you see how it's picked out that snaking line. It doesn't have. It's not too bad with how it views the radar presentation. And you're right, Joe, when you move the NAM through overnight, there's a bulge in the rain that occurs after about midnight up that goes northward and pushes up into upstate New York. And you can also see, by the way, the low itself really just kind of coils its way. We've got an 84 low in Western Virginia, and by tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, it's a 981 low not too far from Baltimore, and it looks like the NAM takes the low right over New York City as a 972 low at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and even has a little come ahead of darker snow coming down the Hudson Valley, but going more toward the Catskill side, that down the Catskills into the Poconos. I haven't seen a storm like this in a long time taking a track this way. Wrapped up animal that is I mean, literally uh, talk about the I-95 corridor. The low tracks basically over Washington, over Baltimore, over Philadelphia, over New York City, over Hartford, and right over Boston. Now, that's about as worse a track that you can have for snow for the big cities.
And in fact, to back up a few, can you see that little flare up of orange that occurs over like let's say northwest Jersey and into the
Right
Hudson
there.
Valley? I mean, what is that? That
Well,
is
that's
that
at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's probably near where you've got to low that deep. If the model's correct, there's probably going to be a comma ahead. You wonder whether somebody might get, you know, I'm just looking at this I'm just noticing this for the first time. I mean, if you're going to have a wrapped up low like this, And given what's going on aloft, you wonder whether there could be this, little right in there. See that right in there?
Right, right.
A little an area of some heavy snow that falls for a couple of hours, and somebody winds up with a surprise couple of inches out of this.
The benchmark of an intensifying storm is indeed convection. I'm wondering whether or not I said too soon that we probably wouldn't see any convection, because if that low continues to intensify and takes a track literally right over the New York metropolitan area, who's to say that some folks might hear some claps of thunder or see some flashes of lightning around late morning. There was one day in late December, when all of a sudden we were getting reports of thunder and lightning, all over the region, and it was not forecast. It was not predicted. In fact, if you remember, the forecast was for thunder and lightning and convection, but in areas over South Jersey and points down toward the Delmarva. And instead, it all occurred up here
Yeah.
in the cold air.
Yes, I remember that. And this has been, listen, let's remember that this winter so far, we've had a number of these like really odd convective events. So you wonder. Now, I pulled up the NAM 3 kilometer. See, the NAM 3 kilometer, this was bothering me since yesterday because it looks like there's just so much noise. It's got a 963 low off the New Jersey coast. Actually, it's a 971 low over New York City. I would have thought that the NAM 3 would have developed maybe a more solid looking comma head on the northwest side. But Joe, if you look really close, even on the NAM 3, I'm going to bring up the tight view here. But take a look. Take a look here on the NAM 3. This is at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, just along and just west of the northern half of New Jersey border. I mean, are those thunderstorms there and that they're showing?
Yeah, Joe, I'm telling you, maybe we spoke too soon. I mean, we opened up here talking about how all the convection would be away to our south and east, but the more I'm looking at this now, I'm saying to myself, well, maybe, just maybe, we might around, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, we might actually be dealing with,
You might be sitting there. Where's the kaboom?
yeah, yeah.
There was supposed to be a loud, earth-shattering kaboom.
No, you have to do it right.
Hmm.
No,
Isn't that lovely?
where's the kaboom?
Yes.
Oh,
The
well,
aluminum
I think a uranium P238
space
modulator.
modulator. Someone has taken the space modulator. Well, here's your low, but
What was the name of
also,
the dog? Remember that he had a dog?
yes, I forgot. Yeah,
I,
I forgot. Um, so anyway, back to this thing. Also, it looks like there might be some significant icing in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, and into southern Maine before it goes over to all snow at some point. And then, of course, the low pulls away. This damn 3 is a mess, Joe. If you look at the isobars,
yeah,
there's got to be some sort of convective feedback going on here because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, probably 9 lows. Even though that one low that it prints out, the way it's got these isobars drawn, they're like 9 mini, even more mini cyclones. So,
why don't we just say chance of thunderstorms tomorrow and be done with it?
well, here's the NAM 12. Let me just on the close up. Yeah, that's a nice looking The only thing that probably keeps it from producing big snows is it is moving relatively quickly. So, I mean, you're talking about, the air initially not being all that cold, so you're going to waste some accumulation. Maybe
Well,
that's
wait a
what.
minute. Now here we are talking about convection. Why don't we go to the frontal the 700 millibar
Oh,
frontal
yes, the F gen.
the F gen and see what that comes up with.
All right.
And
Well, look at that omega, by the way. Look at the. See, I'm getting good at this now. Look at the omega in central PA.
uh-huh.
This is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And it kind of goes into northeastern Pennsylvania and through upstate New York. Doesn't shows a little bit there and over southern New Jersey. You see that there,
Right,
right?
right.
And it does. It's not nearly as impressive as what's up, but from northeast PA on up into upstate New York. I got to get myself used to using this. Uh, and I want to also take a look. Let's look at the 850 if we can glean anything from the 850.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, Joe. You look at the 850, even though the surface, you've got to be careful sometimes when you look at these maps and you see the precip type that it shows. Because I'm noticing that where the GFS on the surface, I'm sorry, where the NAM on the surface has got that darker blue, you know, the 850 temperatures here look a little bit high. So maybe that's a little bit overdone on the surface map for some reason. But nonetheless, um, at 850, there looks like there's some fairly sharp omega there at well, hey, if that's in the cold air, low top thunderstorm.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
looking at 850 at 5,000 feet. You got some pretty nasty looking omega there in northeastern Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, and up the Hudson Valley into the Catskills, going in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Why not? Or certainly at least a band of heavy precip.
Yeah. That I would. Yeah. I would throw in a thunderstorm just for the heck of it, and say, so if it doesn't happen, who cares? But uh,
Yeah, no,
this
this is very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting to see how this plays for tomorrow morning. I wonder if somebody every winter you wind up with a surprise happening on every once in a while, and I wonder whether there might be a surprise for somebody in maybe in central or in east central PA, and then on up northeast into the Catskills. As the low goes by and they get under the comma head. Why not?
could be. Why not? They're at 17Z on the NAN 3 kilometer um, uh, FGen.
Okay,
There's like an isolated little patch moving over into the immediate New York City metropolitan area. I mean, all the significant stuff is well to the north, in northeastern Pennsylvania up to northern Vermont. But there's that one little area, then that supposedly, I guess, is where the low is supposed to be, or one of those lows is supposed to be at 17Z tomorrow.
right.
Again, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. You know what? We'll see tomorrow morning when we wake up and see what we're looking at.
Yeah,
In the meantime, just going forward, after this major storm pulls out, and of course you see the bigger snows by Friday night are going to be up in Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and in Maine, and then they go away. Looks like we'll probably see some gusts of 40 or maybe 50 tomorrow along the coast. Then Saturday things relax. There was it looked like there might be a weak system for Sunday, but because of what's going on in the west, that doesn't happen. The system that's in the northwest right now kind of weakens as it moves eastward. You see it tracking across Iowa and into the Great Lakes, so that by Monday we've got a cold front, and of course by then all the cold air is gone, so we get some rain. And I think this front's going to stall out with a little bit of a wave here. I don't know if the GFS has caught up to the idea yet. It might have to wait another run or two to do so, but I think there's going to be a wave, a second wave for Tuesday that's going to try to come up. Although, again, here, there's not a whole lot of cold air until after the wave goes by. And then as we get toward the end of the week, looks like a cold high comes down, but I don't know if there's any room for anything to happen. The overall pattern's a mess and continues to be a mess. If you're looking for any hope for snow lovers, I have to tell you, Joe, I think we're going to go. We may have to wait. Maybe a window opens up toward the end of the month. But from what I've been looking at, run after run after run, I just don't um, see too much hope. There are these periods where we get these little slivers of improvement in the upper air to bring down some colder air. And in fact, as I'm running the GFS now, it looks like we'll be getting into something like that late next week. Might actually get cold for a day or so late next week into for next Friday and Saturday, I thought.
for Thursday of next week, the European had a fairly significant um batch of moisture coming over and bringing us rain, of course, not snow.
Right.
Whereas Whereas here on the GFS, it is keeping that rain pretty well to our south, kind of flattening out, suppressing it. So again, there's some discrepancies between the models, but then we're talking about a week away, and who the heck even knows? Some it's one of these days what's going to happen 3 or 4 days down the line, much less a week.
And by the way, next week the Atlantic fire hose is going to be in full force. The jet stream across the Atlantic, uh, planes can get the tailwind.
Oh God.
They could probably cut off a solid hour to hour and a half off their trips going all the way across. Those winds are going to be so fierce in the upper atmosphere. I've never, when you got the NAO going off the wall net positive the way it is, the jet stream in the Atlantic is like a rocket ship, and that's not useful for snow lovers in the eastern part of the U.S. But after that trough pulls out, I'm just kind of running this along. You see that the trough wants to go back in the west in the long range, and the ridge wants to pop up back in the east. It's more of the same, and now we're up to February 21st.
Hmm.
So, you know what? I think we're shot to the end of the month. Maybe we get a change going into March, but at that point, you're going to have an absolutely perfect setup. And given that you don't have that polar connection set up, bringing down any kind of Arctic air to speak of, I don't know how you're going to do it. I really don't.
See, for if you're not a snow lover, and if you are
Oh,
hoping
you should be dancing in the streets if you're
to
not a
dance the
snow
street.
lover.
But right now we're working only on a no hitter. We have at Central Park, for example, we've actually had a trace, and that trace came on Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
A trace of snow. We're not going to be able to work on a perfect game, and I think we've only had one particular February. That was the one that we often referred to where we had like 5 inches of snow right after the official start of spring. But it looks like what we're looking at right now is nearly nearly zilch as far as any kind of significant snow is concerned. Maybe not just for Central Park, maybe even for up here where I live in the lower Hudson Valley, because I don't really see much of anything coming our way for the next 5, 6, 7 days, and maybe even beyond that.
Yep, you said a mouthful. By the way, since you're a Met fan, I see a couple of the guys on the chat board tonight are talking about the Wilpons.
Oh please, they are never going to let the Mets go. They're never going to let you know let somebody else have a run at the team. They're going to hold on to it, and they're still suffering. I guess they're still suffering from the Bernie Madoff uh, financial crisis, where they had a good deal of their money invested, and it went down the tubes with the Madoff investments. Um, and what are you going to do? What are you going to say?
I
That's
don't
why,
know.
Joe, the Yankees. That's why the Yankees, for all of these years, have been able to build up, quality lineups and everything, because they just go out and they buy. And the Mets, they've always been chintzy. What can I say? I'm a Met fan, but I and so many other Met fans we were like jumping up and down. And my goodness, somebody's actually going to buy the team and spend some money, but that doesn't look like it's going to be the case now.
And the Wilpons are just because I really don't pay too much attention, but the Wilpons have just basically what are they operating it as a tax loss? I mean, I don't know. What are they? You know,
I don't know.
what are they doing?
I have. You're asking me? You're a former tax expert, whatever. Still, you probably know more about
Oh,
taxes
I
than.
have no idea. Not at that level.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's the champagne and caviar level. I'm more beer and pretzel. All right, so that pretty much I think. Joe, let's wrap it up tonight because I'm tired and you're tired. All right, so here's the situation, folks. Tomorrow we're taking off, okay? Because we're going to be on the back side of this. So unless the bottom completely falls out, uh, well, Joe, you're taking off for sure. If the bottom falls out, I may pop on for a short time. And I guess the next after that, well, we'll wait till Sunday morning, and we'll come back Sunday morning. Does that work for
Sunday.
you? So
Yeah,
Sunday morning at 11 o'clock, we'll have coffee with Joe and Joe. It's at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So don't count on a live stream tomorrow from both of us. Possibly I'll sneak on during the day maybe and do a quick one. If that comma head turns out to start producing some heavy snows, maybe I'll jump on, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, because we both need a break, so we're gonna take one.
William Huber says, no, Joe R. They bring up good players out of farm system. Yeah, but the farm system, is practically depleted. There's not all that much to go down in the Met farm system right now. I don't see anybody banging on the Mets doors and saying, "I want that rookie, that kid," and we'll give you, a high priced player or whatever. Um, it just the whole thing with the Mets is a mess. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And Joe, one thing I asked you yesterday off air,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was only half kidding because Letterman, when David Letterman was running the Late Show on Channel Two, there was one night when he actually invited. He said, "We're going to have a late show. We're going to tape the Late Show at like 4 in the morning." He wanted to
Right.
see how many
All right.
show
You
up.
said yes.
So I'm just saying, throwing out right now. You think anybody, if we announced that we were going to have a Joe and Joe at 3 a.m., how many people would you think would tune in at 3 or 4 in the morning to hear us blither at that particular
I'll
hour?
tell you what. I'll do a 3 or 4 a.m. live stream if there's weather going on. By the way, I'm hearing feedback. Is that you?
I heard feedback just a few moments ago
Do you
too.
have do you have the video audio running on your iPad or something?
No, no,
No.
no. I was just it was a temporary malconnection or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. All right. Yeah, I
But
mean, I'll be more than. I'll get up and do a live stream at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But I don't want to do it if there's nothing going on. If there's
right.
something going on, if we've got a big storm underway or about to approach or whatever, I'll gladly do it. So let's revisit the possibility if and when it shows up.
And for the good old days, Joe. I remember it was about half a year ago, about 6 months ago. There was actually it was a Sunday night, Monday morning, 3 a.m., and there was a tornado warning in effect for parts of the tri-state area. And I looking bleary-eyed out the window, and I'm saying, let's take a look at the latest radar. And I reached for my TV remote control to turn on the traffic and weather channel on channel 61 on Optimum.
Right.
Always alternated back and forth between traffic and weather, traffic and weather. Turn on the TV, and what was I seeing? I was seeing Chef Tony, the an infomercial about how to chop onions with the latest knife or whatever. Because that's basically what, if you want to see anything on the traffic and weather channel after midnight to about 6 in the morning, unfortunately, that's what that is evolved into. is
What are you gonna do?
you can't see and you could have a severe thunderstorm heading right for your house, and he's like, "What is going on? I got to see the radar and everything." And instead, you're seeing
That's good for us. That they do that. That's good for us. So
it is.
let them keep doing
Then
it.
that's when all of you turn on your computer or your laptop, and come to us because we'll probably be on in a situation like that.
Exactly. All right. So let's. By the way, Patreon members, I cut a weather in 10. Actually, it's weather in 15. But there's a weather in 10 video for Patreon members. So just go to the Patreon. Go and check that out. If you're not a member of Patreon, you can join. It's just $2 a month. Patreon.com/meteorologist Joe
Wait,
Jolly.
wait a minute now. Wait a
What?
minute. David Scott. How about this idea? Years ago, Mike and the Mad Dog did 24 consecutive hours on WFAN for charity. How about a Joe and Joe 24 hours straight marathon during the next blizzard?
Okay. I mean, for the next blizzard,
For
if
the
it ever
next,
happens, if it ever happens.
yeah, if it ever happens.
Yeah, I'm game. Well, I don't know about 24 hours. You know, I want to. There are certain things I have to do
Yeah, like
that I'm
shovel.
not going to do. I'm not going to do in this chair. I'm not going to keep a bottle on the side either. So, so you know, um, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But
Well, so
I'm game. I'm game with something if it's reasonable. I'm not gonna. I don't know that I could sit here and do a 24 hour. Hey, actually, we can't do a 24 hour. I don't think we can. I think we're limited to 4 hours on a live stream on an individual live stream. So I probably would have to we'd have to the live stream would end. We'll shut it down and then have to start a new one.
Right.
But we'll deal with that technicality when we get to it. But let's see if first we got to get a coating to an inch. We can't even get a coating to an inch here in the I-95 corridor, let alone something of size.
Joe and Joe weather coverage of the St. Patrick's Day snowstorm, according to John Tracabino or Tracachino.
A
Travis
Trabacchino, yes,
Trapicino.
yes. He's up in Western Mass, so at least he's going to see something out of this before this system before it's all done.
And Latex Dream says Rayo's got a glow on him.
Yeah, you do look healthy and happy today.
Joe, quite the opposite. It was one of those days for me today, but
Yeah.
I won't get into that.
Well, let's wrap it up because Perry Mason was just calling Mr. Aldrich to the stand as they wrap up the I forgot what case it is. It's the very first. It's actually I'm watching the very first Perry Mason episode. I'm watching them in order, so
Well,
I'm going to check that out. So
and if any of you are Me TV fans or you have Me TV tonight at 9 o'clock, probably the best example of Jim Neighbors' big, and I do mean big baritone voice. It is the episode where he and Sergeant Carter are in Washington D.C. and Gomer catches uh, some laryngitis, I think it is. But toward the end, he gets his voice back and sings "To Dream the Impossible Dream." And if you ever want to hear that song the way it should be done, tonight at 9 o'clock, watch that episode. It's a great episode.
all right, okay, Joe. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great night. We'll again, no, probably no live stream tomorrow or Saturday unless the bottom falls out tomorrow. And then we'll be back on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Good night, everybody.
Night to all.